So your long-term partner left you, boohoo. But boohoo is what you do because there's a feeling that's hard to pinpoint. You get that feeling of sadness, loneliness, and the compulsion to scroll through old messages and pictures. But underneath all of that, you finally come to a realization that you're going to have to live your life without this person. You see, moving on isn't just about losing a partner, it's about grappling with losing a version of yourself as well. So today we're going to talk about why moving on can be so difficult and the areas where people can get emotionally stuck. I make weekly videos for people seeking better connections with those people that mean the most to them. So subscribe for more videos like this. I'm Sam, and this is The Connection Room. A lot of conversations about breakups focus solely in terms of getting over our exes. But if we're to scratch under that surface, we'll see that it's not just the person, it's the routines, the identity we've built alongside them, and the imagined future that we built together. Let's make no mistake here, breakups suck, even when they're good for us. But why? Well, Dr. Helen Fisher and her team put people who had just gone through a painful breakup into an MRI scanner. They were shown pictures of partners who had broken up with them. And she found the same brain area that lights up in addiction lit up in places such as the brain's reward and motivation centers.
I've also come to believe that romantic love is an addiction, a perfectly wonderful addiction when it's going well, and a perfectly horrible addiction when it's going poorly. And indeed, it has all of the characteristics of an addiction. You focus on the person, you obsessively think about them, you crave them, you distort reality, your willingness to take enormous risks to win this person. And it's got the three main characteristics of addiction: tolerance, you need to see more and more and more, withdrawals, and last but not relapse.
So heartbreak isn't just emotional or poetic. It actually causes your brain to react the same way it does when you have a dependency withdrawal. Now, there are a few caveats to bear in mind. These results were especially true for people who were still deeply attached after their breakup, and not every breakup plays out this way. Also, brain areas activated are similar to those involved in drug withdrawal, but do not map on the exact same way because the same craving system is being activated in a different context. But the core idea is what matters the most here. Heartbreak can feel like withdrawal because your brain has been wired to seek a person who gives you an emotional and chemical reward, even if that someone is toxic as hell. There are three reasons why people tend to get stuck after a breakup. Firstly, you're grieving someone who is still alive. Powerhouse psychiatrist Elisabeth Kübler-Ross is famous for coming up with the 5 stages of grief. You've probably heard them at some point in your life, but we'll just quickly run through it now. It's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Originally, this model was used to explain our human reaction to death, but over time, modern psychologists have used it to explain any major emotional loss, and that includes breakups. Now, when a relationship ends, it feels like you're grieving something that was woven into your everyday life, but you don't get the kind of closure you get when a casket is closed and lowered into the ground, or when somebody is put into a furnace. Instead, you get a strange, confusing version of grief, where the future you imagine dies, but the person themselves is still walking around in the world, going to work, posting stories with their new boo, and living their life without you in it. And that's a dagger in your front, back, and side, because you've been cast out of Eden and forced to live in a world where the person you've lost is still visible, still temptingly reachable, but out of reach. The second thing that makes it difficult is that your identity was intertwined with theirs. Esther Perel often states that there are 3 stories: who you are as an individual, who your partner is, and who you become together. That third identity is its own world. In close relationships, we adopt each other's habits, rhythms, and humor. But when the relationship ends, that shared world collapses, along with that third identity. This is what she calls identity collapse. You're not just losing a partner, you're losing a specific part of yourself that was only brought into existence because you were in a relationship with your ex. Thirdly, and more toxically isn't a word, is it? More toxic of all, you're addicted to the highs and blind to the lows. The psychologist Dorothy Tenov coined the term limerence. She said this is a state of romantic obsession where the brain only remembers emotional highs and filters out painful home truths. Your brain becomes a biased historian. It archives the romance and deletes the reality. And it happens to the best of us. I had a breakup in my early 20s and it took me 2 months to actually realize that me and this woman shouldn't have even swapped stairs, let alone. But despite the fact that we were so unbelievably incompatible, the end of the relationship still felt like a loss. But hindsight can make relationships seem better than it ever felt in real time. And if we're ever going to move on, especially from incompatible relationships, we need to take off our rose-tinted glasses and evaluate what truly happened in our relationship. So listen, you're not just letting go of a person. You're watching the fantasy of your future and everything you had hoped for disintegrate. So then it's natural to spin alternative universes such as if we had tried harder, or if we had met at a different time, or if they had healed adequately enough. But facts is facts, Jack. And what you have in your head is a fantasy, an emotional projection. And the longer you hold on to this fantasy, the longer you stay in a state of paralysis, waiting for the next chapter of a story that has already ended. You don't move on by getting over a person. You move on by putting the relationship in its proper place, taking joy in the things that went well and learning from the things that didn't. So how do we actually move on? We subscribe to the connection room. Come on, do it now. Do it now. Back to business. We need to be honest about the type of relationship that has just ended, because most of the time, the relationship was toast before we made it official. Needs weren't met, resentment creeped in, and conflicts were too brutal with inadequate reconciliation. We need to recognize that we didn't lose something perfect, we lost something familiar, and those aren't the same thing. And you'll also have to teach yourself to stop negotiating with the past. Your brain will try and re-edit history and tell you that you missed things that never really worked. You'll romanticize moments that weren't even romantic. It's not a joke. Breakups will have you saying weirdo things like, I miss how we used to argue, knowing full well that you hated it and it was deeply stressful. Remember what actually happened in your relationship and make peace with the fact that it's ended. I need you to remember this. This isn't Disney. And sometimes love isn't always enough. The road to successful long-term relationships is littered with the bodies of couples who loved each other. But relationships don't die because love dies. They end because other things were left to perish instead. In some cases, growth was compromised. In others, some felt smothered by increasing responsibilities. Or maybe trust was eroded in a bar in Camden Town. Even at the end, when everything is said and done, people can still love each other, but without the other supporting structures, it's like a house built on the sand. It's destined to collapse. So now you have to build a new identity. There's a modern idea that a person finds themselves after a breakup, which has been popularized by books like Elisabeth Gilbert's Eat, Pray, Love and Wild by Cheryl Strayed. But it's not quite that we find ourselves, but instead we engage in rebuilding. A new start to form new habits, gain new social circles, find new sources of validations. And in this process of rebuilding, we learn that we can exist without our ex. They were a former part of our identity, but they are not the sole basis of who we are. And as a part of this journey, we learn that closure doesn't come from the other person. Closure isn't Amazon Prime. It doesn't arrive in a neatly packaged box when it's most convenient for you. In a lot of cases, it doesn't even arrive at all. Remember what we said previously about creating a fantasy. Living every day thinking the ex who hurt you will suddenly gain emotional maturity they never had, pick up the phone and deliver you a perfect explanation with full accountability is the stuff of legends. Partly because you will have had your part to play in the breakup, however subtle, but you aren't rushing to pick up the phone now, are you? I say that to say closure isn't on the other person. It's coming to the realization that understanding why they did what they did or why they chose to lean into certain behaviors won't fix the part of you that feels so cheated and abandoned. Ultimately, you still have to find a way to tread the road to repair, even if they never tell the truth about what happened. even if they refuse to take accountability and blame you entirely for the breakdown of the relationship. You still have to move on, and that can only happen when you choose to stop negotiating your future with somebody who lives in your past. So here's the medicine. Moving on is difficult because it holds a mirror up to your face and asks you to consider what you have been inside the ecosystem of your relationship and what you will be after. It forces you to stake a claim in your future without the emotional security of the person that you have relied on for so long. But if you can do this, you'll learn that you won't always feel this way. You won't always miss them with this intensity, and when you're ready, you'll meet someone new. Not as a replacement, but as a reflection of the person that you've grown into. A breakup doesn't have to turn us into ghosts of ourselves, frozen in time like Miss Havisham. It can be the moment that we rediscover who we are whilst rebuilding who we want to be. But it only works when we can comfortably leave the past in the past. Because really moving on isn't about forgetting someone, it's about remembering who you are, right? So if you've gotten over a breakup and emerged as a stronger, more thoughtful person, hit me with some tips in the comments. You know I'm always learning. And if you're currently going through a breakup, take it day by day, things will get better. If you've made it to the end of the video, thank you for the watch time, and consider giving it a like and subscribe for more videos on building stronger connections with those who mean the most. It's free, and it means you might see a whole lot more of me. I'm Sam, and until the next time, make some moves.